So earlier we had seen how to add a new node or a new element to the end of a linked list. So assume that I have this particular linked list. Now I don't want to add a new node or a new element to the end of the linked list. Rather, I want to add at the beginning of the linked list. So all that I have to do is I need to create a new node and make sure that it's at the beginning of the linked list. So now let's see how we can write a code for this. So first thing that we need to do in this case is we need to understand over here as well there will be two cases. One is when the linked list is empty and the other the linked list is not empty. So how do we know whether the linked list is empty or not empty? We have already seen that. So let's take a case when the linked list is empty. So when the linked list is empty, head will be pointing to null. So all that I have to do now is first point that I need to create a new node. So I'll be creating a new node. Once I create a new node, I will give a reference to this and the reference will be nothing but temp, which actually stores the address or the reference of that particular node. And inside that variable, there will be the integer value that I want to store, and inside the next part, it will be pointing to null or none. Now, what is that I have to do is, if this is the if the linked list is empty, this is only my first node. So all that I have to do is head should directly start pointing to temp, and you already know how head will directly start pointing to temp. The next thing is whenever the linked list is not empty. So this is where it is bit complex. It is not actually very complex as the previous program, but it's simple if you understand it diagrammatically. So all that you have to do is, in the second case, all I have to do is, I already have a linked list. So all that I have to do is create a new node as the previous case. So I'll create a new node called as temp, and the element inside this is 5, and the next part will be pointing to null. Now what I need to do is, I need to ensure that this node is actually at the starting of this particular linked list. Now how do I ensure? It is very simple. If this is the first node, then definitely this will become the second node. So if this is the first node and this is the second node, so in the next part of the first node, what should be there? The reference of the next node has to be there. Now what I need to do is, in temp.next, what I need to store, if you ask me, I need to store the reference of the current first node, means this first node. Now how can I get the reference of this? The reference of this is already available in head, and all I have to do is, in temp.next, I need to store it. So if I store this particular thing, what happens is this will start pointing to this particular node rather than pointing to null. This is the first thing that I have to do. Now I have done this. So head is such a node, such a reference which will always point to the first node. But you can clearly see now, head is not pointing to the first node, rather it is pointing to the second node, because this is the second node and this is the first node. So all I have to do is make sure that the head starts pointing to this. So how do I make sure that head starts pointing to this? Very simple. Whatever is there in temp, I need to place it in head. That's all I have to do. So all that I will do is head is equal to temp. I need to write that. If I write that, it means to say head is pointing to this node, that's something but the first node. Temp you can totally ignore now. Then after that, the head dot next is nothing but this particular thing is already pointing to the next node, and here on everything is pointing one next to the other. So this is what I have to do. So how can I write that in code? Very simple. One thing that you had seen in common in both the places is I have to create a node called as temp. So I'll create a new node. Inside that I'll place a variable 5 or a value 5, and after that what I'll do is I'll store it inside the variable temp. After this, all I have to do is I need to check whether head is empty or not empty. If it is empty, if the linked list is empty, head will be pointing to null, so I'll check. If head is pointing to null or none, so I'll say head is equal to null. If it is pointing to null, then what I need to do is, I know this is my first node, so all I have to do is head should start pointing to temp. So whatever is in temp should store in head. How do I write that? Head is equal to temp. Else what I have to do? Two steps. One is temp.next. So I have already created the node. Temp.next should start pointing to this. How do I do that? I will say temp.next is equal to whatever is there in head. So I will say temp.next is equal to head. And after that, head should not point to the second node, rather it should point to the first node. So the first node is nothing but the temp node. So what I will say is head is equal to temp. So if I do this particular code, then it is completely clear that I have written the code for adding an element or adding a new node at the beginning of the linked list. So the name of the method I am going to give it as add first, and I need to pass the element, and once I do that, this should execute, and it should make sure that the element has been added to the first at the starting of the linked list. So I hope the logic is completely clear to you. Now let's go and write the code for this. Now let's implement the code that we have already seen. So what I need to do over here is, I have already implemented add method and print linked list method. Now add first is the name of the method that I would like to create. So I will go to the linked list class. So in the linked list class over here, I have written the method. I can just open and show those things. So don't think I have deleted it. Same way, I will close it. Same way, the add method is also written. So this is the add method. Now I am going to write the one more method, that's nothing but add first. So let me go and write the code for add first. So I'll say it doesn't return anything. So it's void. Then add first. And I need to pass the element. Element is nothing but integer type. Int. Great. I'll come inside. Now inside this, all I have to do is, first task is to create a new node. So let me create a new node. And the element that I want over here is 5. So I'll say, oh sorry, not 5. Whatever it is passed in this particular E, that is what has to be there. So I'll say E. Next, whatever I have, I'll store it inside a temporary variable called as temp. So I'll say temp. I'll come to the next line, and in the next line, all that I have to do is, I need to check is the linked list empty or not empty. How do I check? I will just say if, and after that I will say is head equal to empty or not empty. So I will check if it is equal to null. If it is equal to null, it means to say that it is empty. So I will come inside. So I will write the else part as well. Else, I will open and close. So inside this, what I need to do is, I need to write the code when it is empty. When it is empty, all I have to do is just say head equal to temp. So it's head equal to temp. Next, after that, in the else part, all that I have to do is two operations. One is the temp dot next, whatever is there, it is already pointing to null. That thing I need to start pointing it to head. So I will say temp dot next is equal to head. Equal to head. Next, I'll come to the next line. All I have to do is the head. So whatever is there in head, it is actually pointing to the second node as of now. So I need to make sure it points to the first node. Who is the first node? Temp is the first node. So head is equal to temp is what happens. Head equal to temp. This is all I have to do. Once I do this, all the elements will be printed as it is. So what I am going to do is, I am just going to the main method. Over here, you can clearly see I have told add 10, 20, 30 and 40. So I have added all the elements. After this, 10, 20, 30, 40, if I execute, it will come as 10, 20, 30, 40. If I will just execute this and show it to you. So you can see 10, 20, 30. I want the element to be added over here. So if I want the element to be added over here, all that I have to do is call add first. So what I will do is, after this I will say add first. ll dot add first. And I will pass 5. And I will again, so if I execute this, you can clearly see first it will come 5, then 10, 20, 30, 40. And you can clearly see this. Again, if I add one more element, it will add before 5. So if I say ll dot add, so ll dot add 2 I will add. So what happens is, first it will be 2, then it will be 5, then it will be 10, 20, 30, 40. So you can clearly see if I execute that, you will get in that particular row. So I hope how to add the element to the starting of a linked list is completely clear to you. If you have enjoyed this video and would not like to miss any of our videos, hit on the subscribe button and click the bell icon.